Welcome to the Bee's Knees, a pokey but warm tavern in the fine village of Shinford. I know what you're thinking. It looks nice, but why are we here? We are here because hope and fear can play a big part in shaping the narrative in Daggerheart. But it's not just epic fights where this mechanic comes into effect. Today, I want to simulate a social encounter and show how the Duality Dice can help lead the story wherever it may take us. This is Maud, the innkeeper. He has been in the village all his life. There's not much that goes on in Shinford that he doesn't know about. A few of his regular patrons are gathered by the side, while some of the guards from the local garrison are enjoying some much needed downtime in the corner. The door opens, and in walks an adventuring party. First up we have Winifred, a goblin wizard of the Underborn community. Following her is Rolo, a Galloper warrior of the Orderborn community. And lastly we have Mrs. Shanks, a human rogue, Slyborn. While the adventurers sidle up to the bar, let me catch you up on how they came to the Bee's Knees today. 4 days ago, the party was in the nearby town of Tuppence, a former hanging town now crawling with drifters, thieves and worse. After a heated dispute with a shopkeeper over potion prices, they spent the night at a local tavern. By morning, the guards were at their door. The shopkeeper had been found murdered, and the townsfolk were quick to blame the 3 outsiders he'd argued with, and they fled. Determined to clear their names, they began searching for the true killer, and their investigation uncovered whispers of a shadowy sorcerer known only as the Mist, who had also visited the shopkeeper that day, though oddly, some locals seem to have forgotten that detail entirely. Now, the trail has led Winifred, Rolo and Mrs. Shanks to the quiet town of Shinford. "Afternoon," says Maud. "What'll it be?" "Mead," replies Winifred, Rolo and Mrs. Shanks in unison. The barman grabs a few tankards and begins filling them up from a shabby-looking barrel. "That'll be a handful of gold," he says. Now, Winifred has always been a bit thrifty with her coin purse. A handful is a lot for the young wizard, and she starts listing off a string of reasons why they should get their drinks for free. They have travelled a long and winding road, she's not had mead in years, it would be good for Maud's reputation, that kind of thing. Maud listens but stays quiet until she has finished. At the end of her long monologue, the DM asks Winifred to make a presence roll to see if her reasoning is enough to convince Maud to give them a discount. The DM thinks it's a tall order that the barman would give over free drinks to a bunch of strangers, and sets the difficulty to 20. She rolls the duality dice and adds her presence trait. Oh dear. The result is a failure with fear. A failure with fear means that things do not go as planned, and gets worse. The DM first receives 1 fear. He then describes how Maud begins laughing hysterically at Winifred. He shakes his head as he wipes tears from his eyes. The DM also says that all this laughter attracts the attention of the garrison guards sitting in the corner. They turn to look at the newcomers, but are immediately distracted by 2 of their friends who arrive and join them. Rolo gives Winifred a look full of daggers. "Let's stay cool," he says. Rolo then turns his attention back to Maud. He decides to waste no more time in trying to get the information they need. He asks the barman if he has ever heard of a sorcerer called the Mist. "Never heard of him," says Maud flatly. "You sure?" asks Rolo. "Absolutely," says Maud. "I think he's lying," whispers Mrs. Shanks. Mrs. Shanks asks the DM if there's anything she can notice about the barman's body language that suggests he's not telling the truth. The DM asks her to make an instinct check and sets the difficulty at 15. She gets a success, but with fear. This means that Mrs. Shanks will get what she wants, but at a cost. The DM gains a fear and then informs Mrs. Shanks that there is something not quite right about Maud's answer. He clearly has something to hide. The DM goes on to say that Maud sees you studying him, and he frowns. He studies you right back, Then he turns to look at a wanted poster on the wall. You suddenly realise that the 3 people crudely drawn on the picture look very much like yourselves. The barman frowns and scratches his chin. "Hey," says Rolo, getting his attention. The barman spins and eyes the group suspiciously. He glances at the guards in the corner. "You're a liar," says Mrs. Shanks. "You know something about the mist." "Just hear us out," says Rolo. The party then regales Maud with the full tale of what happened in Tuppentry, trying to convince the dwarf that they are not in the wrong and that the mysterious sorcerer needs to be brought to justice. The DM describes Maud to be listening intently, weighing up everything the party says. He asks Rolo, who did most of the talking, to make a presence action roll to see if their pleas for help have had any impact. Maud is a good-natured man, and the DM sets the difficulty at just 12. Rolo uses his Heart of Gold experience to add +2 to the roll. But the result is a failure, with hope. This means that things do not go as planned, but Rolo still gains a hope. The DM describes how the barman shakes his head slowly, not giving up any information that the party requires. But he does show signs that this is with regret, perhaps? He looks towards the door at the other side of the tavern, as if the answer the players want is on the other side. The DM also gets to make a move. He describes how another guard enters the tavern. He does not join the others, but instead approaches the bar and asks Maud for some ale. The barman heads out back to get a new barrel. The new guard glances sideways at the party, but does not react further. Winnie nudges Mrs. Shanks and nods towards the door at the back of the room. Mrs. Shanks nods back, then casually slips off towards the door. She tries the handle but finds that it is locked. No one seems to be looking, so Mrs. Shanks puts her hand behind her back and leans against the door casually. She then pulls out a lockpick from her pocket and attempts to pick the lock. The DM asks Mrs. Shank to make a finesse roll and sets the difficulty at 18. Mrs. Shanks gets a success, with fear. This means that Mrs. Shanks gets what she wants, but as a consequence, and the DM also gains a fear. The DM describes how the lock opens with a loud click. Mrs. Shanks looks up and sees the guard at the bar staring at her. Not only that, but he is reaching for his sword. "We cause a distraction," shouts Winnie to the DM. "We do?" says Rolo. "Oh yes, we do." The DM asks them what they do. They need to act quickly. Winnie says that she spontaneously erupts into singing and dancing. "I'll help," says Rolo. "I'll bang the bar to create a beat." "Nice," says the DM. He asks her to make a presence roll to see what the guard makes of this ad hoc performance. He sets the difficulty at 20. Rolo spends a hope to help Winnie, giving her advantage on the roll. Winnie rolls and gets a success, with hope. She gains a hope, and the DM asks her to describe what happens. Winnie describes how the guard is suddenly enraptured in her performance, forgetting Mrs. Shanks entirely, and he claps along with the song. The guards and other patrons of the tavern do the same. Winnie takes a huge bow, and Mrs. Shanks slips through the door. So what's on the other side of the door? Well, I think we will leave that as a mystery. Maybe a clue to finding the evil sorcerer was on the other side. Maybe something else. For now, let's reverse time and go back to when Winnie made her presence roll for her song and dance performance. Let's see what would have happened had she not got a success with hope. First, let's say she got a success with fear. Now the scene plays out a little different. The DM describes how the performance was enough to distract the guard, who took his eyes off Mrs. Shanks, and the rogue was able to slip inside the room. But the guard immediately recognises Winnie and Rolo from the wanted posters and draws his sword at them instead. Let's rewind again. This time, Winnie rolls a failure with hope. Now the DM describes how the guard never takes his eyes off Mrs. Shanks, despite the singing breaking out beside him. He pulls his sword and marches right up to the rogue. However, there is still hope. The other guards are too busy watching the dancing to get involved in what's about to happen with Mrs. Shanks. Let's rewind once more to see what it looks like when Winnie rolls a failure with fear. The guard sees Mrs. Shanks and rushes over to confront her. But things get worse. The other guards all jump to their feet too, all drawing weapons. A fight would be hard to avoid now. Lastly, let's rewind one last time to see Winnie roll a critical success. Again, Winnie describes how the guard is suddenly enraptured in her performance. He forgets Mrs. Shanks and claps along. All the other patrons of the tavern do the same. They take a bow as Mrs. Shanks enters the door undetected. The DM also adds that the patrons all start shouting free drinks for the performing duo. This is the start of a very merry night indeed. Thanks for watching. I would be very interested to hear how you would have changed the narrative based on the dice rolled. Daggerheart is such a unique system. There's no right or wrong answers, just an evolving narrative based purely on dice outcomes and imagination. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if you fail anything this week, then let it be with hope.